Hi everyone. Today's video is going to focus on what's happening really kind of at the end of January. There are so many things that are happening at the end of January, and I wanted to do a video that specifically focuses on all of these different planets that are changing gates, and to talk a little bit about navigating change, the significance of growing your capacity to navigate change. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. We're going to dive into the specifics so that you can see how much change is actually happening at the end of this month, and how you can get ready for it and how you can make the most of it. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Before we dive into the content for today, I want to let you know, I know so many of you have asked me before about creating a program about how to understand the human design transits, right? And I have promised it to you. And guess what? I am about to deliver it to you. So next week on Tuesday, January 28th, I am offering a preview session, which is about this new program, and it's called Evolve Yourself Through the Human Design Transits. And we're going to go over what the elements of that program is, what you can expect to walk away with, what you're going to learn during that time. We're going to focus both on learning about the human design transits and then also looking at your incarnation cross, which are your four most important gates, and seeing how those work with the transits, because after all, your human design chart is basically a snapshot of the transit when you were born and another snapshot of 88 days prior to when you were born. So the transits are absolutely what create your human design. And so we're going to be looking at that, and we're going to look at those four most important gates over that 4-month period. So it's a 4-month program, and I'll go more into all of the specifics during that session. I also invite you to put in the comments below if you have specific questions about the transits or about your incarnation cross. I'd love to respond to those for you. There will definitely be a Q&A session where you can ask me anything you want to about the transits or about your incarnation cross, and of course about the program. Okay, let's go ahead and dive in for our content from today. So in this slide, I wanted to just show you that all of these different planets, now these are all down towards the bottom of the human design chart, which means that they are actually outer planets. And so many of them are changing gates, and so much of it is happening at the same time. So you can see here, Mars is changing, Jupiter is changing, Saturn's changing, Uranus is going to change soon, and then Neptune is changing the beginning of February, and Pluto has already changed. No. And then Pluto is changing at the end of the month also. So we have got 5 major changes that are happening here right at the end of the month. So I know the astrologers have been talking a lot about the significance that the outer planets are all changing signs within an 18-month period. And so though the astrological signs are longer periods of time, whereas the gates are shorter periods of time. If you just think there are 12 astrological signs that go around the wheel in the course of a year, where there are 64 gates, right? So 12 to 64, you can see one is much longer than the other, right? If there's only 12, we're going to spend much more time in one of the astrological signs. But it's highly unusual. I don't think I've ever seen this many. I've been doing transit reports for 4 years now, tracking them every 5 to 6 days. And I've never seen so many of the planets change gates all at the same time. So let's just talk a little bit about navigating change. Now, I know there are some people who are like, yay, change, I love it, let's go for it, right? They just seem to be wired that way. There's other people, not so much. They don't really like it. They like things to stay the same. Now, from a human design point of view, theoretically anyway, based on how we interpret human design, people who have more openness would be more open to change because they're going to have change happening in their design all the time anyway. Like for me, I have 5 open centers. I only have 4 defined centers. So change is relatively easy for me. It's also the fact that I have so much individual circuitry, which is all about change. So that's another place you could look for in your own human design, is how much individual circuitry you have, how much collective circuitry, and how much tribal circuitry. Because if you have more tribal and collective circuitry, chances are you're not going to be as keen on change as somebody who has more individual circuitry. So that's something you can check out for yourself. Also, see how much openness you have, because my experience with people who have a lot of defined centers is that change is more challenging for them. Now, just think about that for a second. It's because all of these different centers have a relatively fixed way that you're experiencing them, right? So I'll just take my G center for a second, right? So my G center is defined, which means I have a relatively consistent way of experiencing love, lovability, identity, and direction in life, right? Because that's what the G center is. And I have already created a way that I feel about all of those things. Now, I can change them, right? I mean, I've morphed and changed my identity and my direction in life many, many times. So it's not like you're stuck there. Okay, it's not, but it does tend to be more consistent, and it can even feel fixed. And I have a friend, for example, who has 8 defined centers. And I remember doing a reading for a different friend of mine who had 9 defined centers. And I said to her, I said, how's change for you? And she goes, it's really hard. It takes me a really long time. And I remember her saying, yeah, my husband, it really bugs him. And I'm like, well, let him know. It's because you have a really solid human design. There's not a lot of morphing that's going on a regular basis. And so it takes you a little bit longer to be able to navigate change. So this is one of the places that you can look in your own human design to see just, at a glance, are you more likely to be easier with change or not? So that's from a human design point of view. But then there's also the part of us, our nervous system, or our subconscious, that is running on automatic, right? We've created programs through the course of our life and installed them in our subconscious, things like knowing how to talk or knowing how to walk or how to brush our teeth or how to drive a car. Like there's all these kind of different things that we've learned. We had a program and we installed it, and now it's just operating for us, right? And a lot of them are very beneficial, like the ones I just mentioned. But there's ones maybe not so helpful, like if you have a tendency to just beat up on yourself, right? That could be a program that's going on as well. You might not want to be having that one operating unconsciously for you. So we do want to be able to modify, update, or even eliminate patterns that aren't working for us, right? And that maybe we brought in when we were young and we don't even know that they're there. But the thing is that the unconscious, and particularly the nervous system, right, in order to create change, it takes energy. It takes more energy to navigate change than it does to stay the same. Because if you're just operating the way that your subconscious is used to you operating, then you can just do that without even thinking about it, right? But if it's something that you're learning and you're really focused on creating a change, then you're creating new neural pathways. That takes more energy. Then you have to reinforce them by practicing whatever that is. That takes more energy. Now, they will get set in over time, because this is what can happen. We can create a new pattern and install a new pattern or a new program over time, but it takes more energy. And so if you're somebody who's already exhausted, which unfortunately a lot of people really are, your nervous system might be like, change, I don't have energy for that, and try to just kind of push it away because you don't feel like you have energy for it. So if change is hard for you, one of the things you might really need to do, number one, is restore yourself. Like if you're tired, if you're exhausted, really amplify your self-care. Rest more. Take more time outside if it's okay in the environment you're in right now. If it's snowing, you might want to check that out. But even so even spending 5 minutes outside, having some fresh air can be really great. But just resting, restoring, finding the things that really restore you. I do a lot of Kundalini yoga practices because that helps me to boost and clear and grow my pranic force and fill my energetic field with my own energy. That gives me a lot of energy, and that makes change easier for me because I'm constantly building my own energy. So just a tip for you, if navigating change is difficult, you might want to look at, first of all, look at your human design, see if you're kind of set up for it to be challenging. And if so, give yourself a break. Don't just give up, but be like, okay, it's going to take a little more effort, a little more of my attention. It's going to take a little more time. Okay, so there's that. But then the other is, if we're tired, change is really hard. If you're frustrated, if you're just feeling like if you're dragging, change is really hard. So, calming and boosting your nervous system, making sure that you have more available energy will really help you in navigating change. Okay, with that said, let's go ahead and dive into the specifics of what we're looking at right here at the end of the month. Now, these are all happening in outer planets and in the nodes, because just remember that the sun and the earth, they change gates every 5 to 6 days. They're constantly changing, right? And the inner planets are also changing more rapidly. So here we're going to be looking more at the outer planets. So on January 28th, Jupiter's going to move into the gate 16. So the gate 16 is in the logic circuit, and it comes right off here, off the throat, and it's an interesting gate because it's not really very logical. It's known as the gate of zest. In traditional human design, it's skills. It's part of the channel of talent. In traditional human design, but it's known as zest in quantum human design. And I often call it the ready, fire, aim gate, because it's kind of like the just do it gate. It's like, let's go for it. Let's get engaged, right? So it's not a really like methodical, like let's analyze, let's strategize, let's plan it all out, which is what we tend to think of with left brain energy. It's much more of a, hey, let's just go and make it happen. Okay. So during this Jupiter transit in the gate 16, you can use this energy because Jupiter is going to expand, right? Jupiter expands whatever it is you're focusing on. So you can look at Jupiter and be like, okay, what is it that I want to expand in my life? Now, if the 16 is already defined in your chart, you're not going to feel it as much. If it's open in your chart, like it's open in my chart, I'm going to feel it more. And it's actually going to define my throat because it's made the gate 48. So it's going to define my throat while this transit is happening. So if it's open in your chart, it's going to influence you more. If it's defined in your chart, you can change the way you experience it, but you kind of have to focus on it. You have to make an intention that you're going to be like, okay, I'm going to change the way that I'm experiencing this. Like if you have a tendency to just really hold yourself back, be afraid of moving forward, being afraid of being visible, being afraid of, what other people think, and you're kind of holding yourself back. Use that energy to be like, let's just go for it. Let's just see what happens. Let's no longer, hold ourselves back and feel like we're afraid of what might happen. But use that energy of Jupiter. In human design, Jupiter is like your blessings, right? Use your blessings to give zest to the things that you really want to move forward with, but that you haven't yet. Now, on the same day, January 28th, Saturn is going to move into the gate 22. And Saturn is going to be there for 2 months, as opposed to Jupiter is just going to be there for 1 month. See, this is what happens when the orbits are longer, right? So Saturn is the great teacher. And Saturn is about structuring. And so the 22 is this beautiful energy. It's in the knowing circuit. It's on the emotional solar plexus. And in traditional human design, it's known as openness. And in quantum human design, it's known as surrender. So this energy, like I said, is coming off the emotional solar plexus over here. It's in the knowing circuit. So the knowing circuit is individual circuitry. It's here to be different. It's here to bring change. And it's highly intuitive. So what does this mean, openness and surrender? The way I interpret this is really about us being open to receive the downloads that are coming to us from superconsciousness through that knowing circuit, right? We want to be open to that, and we want to surrender. Okay, we want to surrender whatever our left brain ideas are about this. Because remember, this is in the knowing circuit, and so it's not going to be able to be understood by left brain logic. It's not. It's intuitive. So it lives in a different realm. Here, the invitation is to surrender to the divine guidance that comes to us through that knowing circuit. And it's emotional. So we want to be attuned to its emotional quality. And how is that emotional quality supporting us, right? And if it doesn't feel like it's entirely supporting us, how can we uplift the frequency of it so that it does? And Saturn is lighting it up. So Saturn is saying, are you living in faith that you will receive the divine inspiration and the divine guidance that can come to you? And are you willing to be open to it? And are you willing to surrender all of your human left brain thoughts, right, that you might have been programmed into in order to be able to receive this guidance? And Saturn, remember, really likes when we incrementally pay attention to whatever it is that he is pointing us to. So I really see this as an invitation to more spiritual practice. This is an invitation because Saturn loves practice. Saturn loves personal discipline. And I'll tell you, I have made friends with Saturn by really absorbing and not just like being willing, but actually saying, yes, I'm going to devote myself to what it is that you're highlighting in my life. And so you can use this couple of months here while Saturn is lighting this up and saying, okay, how can I raise the frequency of my emotional energy, right? Because 22 is emotional energy. How can I open more to be receiving the downloads that are coming to me? How can I have a daily or regular spiritual practice where I open to this? And I would encourage you to journal about it when it comes. See if you can open up to have your inner being or your divine self bring more information to you, bring more spiritual guidance to you during this time. This is a great way for you to be accessing and utilizing what Saturn is bringing you for the next couple of months. I'll just say here we do have a new moon in Aquarius and the Chinese New Year that happens on the 29th. I'm going to do a separate video for those, so stay tuned to that because it's kind of a different topic. Okay, so I'm going to come back to that in a different video. But then on the 30th of January, the nodes of the moon are going to move also. I'm a little sad about that because they've been in this really beautiful energy in the gate of spirit, but that's okay. They're going to go ahead and move on. So on January 30th, the south node is going to move into the gate 6 and the north node is going to move into the gate 36. So let's talk about these. So the south node is the energy. We kind of think about this as like what we brought in with us, right? It's kind of the first half of life. Or you can be thinking of it as our karma that we brought in with us, that we've kind of been working with and processing during the first half of our life. Whereas the north node is what we're leaning into. It's what we're learning. It's what we're going to be growing in ourselves in the second half of life. Now, in your human design chart, these gates are going to be activated from when you come in, right? So it doesn't mean that they're completely gone, but the emphasis tends to change. So the 6, it's interesting because the 6 in traditional human design is known as friction. And in quantum human design, it's known as impact. And that's because the 6 can be a little bit, little conflictual energy. It has the potential for that. It's part of the channel of love and war in traditional human design. And so it can have this kind of conflictual energy. It's in the kind of close-in tribal circuit known as the defense circuit. And so it is usually with people who are closer into us. This can be family members, people who we live with, people we work more closely with, and so on. And so there can be potential conflict that's happening with that 6. And I think it's been renamed impact so that we recognize that there is a real impact to this energy. And just to add on top of that, it's known as what we call an aura busting quality. The whole defense circuit, which connects the sacral to the emotional solar plexus on one side and the spleen on the other. Those two channels, the defense circuit, are known as having aura busting qualities, which basically means they're kind of penetrating energy. They're like, right? That you're going to feel them, right? You're going to feel them from other people. Other people are going to feel them from you. So for this period of time, and the nodes are going to be there, they're going to be there until the middle of June. So they're going to be there for the next 6 months. Approximately, right? 5.5 months. And so you want to be looking for that. And we're thinking about how the south node, right? How we brought in this conflictual energy with us. this conflict energy is part of the karma that we brought in with us. If we think about humanity and what's happening now as we're leaning into the Aquarian age, and how the Aquarian age is helping us to really release and let go of the age of empire, which was based in conflict energy, right? Really made us believe that conflict is part of our human nature, which I personally do not believe. I don't think conflict, like big conflict, is part of our human nature. I think it's something that got developed in us during the age of empire, right? And now we've been in it for so long, it's just felt like the way things are. But I don't believe that it is. The North Node is lighting up the gate 36, which is known as crisis in traditional human design, or exploration in quantum human design. And so the 36 is emotional energy. These are both emotional energies. So we have a theme here where we're starting to get these gates on the emotional solar plexus lit up. Okay, so because the 6 was on the emotional solar plexus, the 36 is there, and then what I was just saying with the 22, which is where Saturn is, that's also emotional energy. So we're starting to get a theme here, right? So we want to be really watching and looking at our emotional tone, our emotional energy. And the 36, it's kind of, it's downside, right? I mean, and why it's called crisis is it's kind of like, I've tried everything. I'm bored. It's not working for me anymore. Life doesn't work. Life isn't really meaningless. I've tried stuff. I'm done. I can't find anything to be interested in anymore. Okay. That's a really disempowered state. You don't want to be there. Instead, you can lean into it as exploration, right? Exploration. So what does exploration mean? There's a quality to this that it's funny because it kind of reminds me of the gate 28, right? Which is the gate of struggle, or the great gate of challenge or adventure, right? It's the ability to say, you know what? Yeah, some things in life might be challenging, but let's have beginner's mind. Let's have a fresh look at this. Let's begin again, right? And here we are during this time of a lot of begin again, right? We just are having the Human Design New Year. Pluto's going to be moving to gate 41 at the end of the month also. We've just had Pluto move into Aquarius, so we've got a lot of fresh energy about moving into something new. So you can use this and lean into it for yourself and really be looking at, okay, how do I want to lean into what's new? This is my future, right? This is what's going to be happening in the second half of my life. How can I make the most of it? And I'll say again, for humanity, because the nodes really kind of give an energy to all of humanity, right? It's a powerful background energy, if you will. It's like, how can we be leaning into exploration and refuse to go into crisis? Right? Because they're both right there. They're both available, right? We can be like, we're at the end of this journey. We're going downhill fast, and I don't even know how it's going to go, but it's not going anywhere good, right? You could have that kind of attitude, or the other. And I think this is a great example of how we have different timelines that are being offered to us right now. And that we're believing and we're leaning into. And so which timeline do you want to choose, right? Which timeline do you want to choose? Do you want to choose the one where you get to lean into exploration and possibility? Or do you want to fall into the one where everything's already done and it's all falling apart and it's a big crisis and there's nothing we can do? I don't know about you, but I'm going to go for the one for exploration, which is really what's gotten me through having, the gate 28 defined twice in my chart, right? Is it taking on that role as the ambassador of the future. So the North Node in the 36 is a little bit like that, right? It's like, what are we leaning into? So if you like that, if you resemble that remark, I encourage you to take it on and really work with it for the next 6 months. And that North Node will support you in doing so. And then finally, on the 31st, Mars is going to move into the gate 53. I would refer you to the astrologers to go and check out Mars, because Mars has a really important journey right now. Right here when I am recording this, Mars is square the sun. Mars has been doing a dance with Pluto. Mars is out of bounds, which means out of his regular orbit, and he's spending way more long in this particular gate than usual. So go check out the astrologers if you want to find out more about this. I'm just going to share about this from a human design point of view. So Mars is going to enter that gate 53 on the 31st. It's going to be there for through the spring equinox. And the gate 53 is known as starting things or starting or beginning. And so this is in the sensing circuit, which is right-brained energy. It's creative, it's experiential, it is embodied, and it's not logical. Okay, again, we don't have much logic here. The only logic here we had was that zest, which is not really what we think of as logical, right? So this is a really great time. So Mars is really kind of our agency, right? Now Mars is going to be retrograde for part of this time, but leaving that aside, Mars is like our agency. Mars, rules Aries, and Aries is like, let's make it happen energy. Let's go for it, right? So here's Mars, lighting up the gate of starting things. So we're going to have an opportunity for a couple of months here. And again, here we're looking at the nodes going into that north node, going into exploration, and Mars is going into starting things, right? And we're all here with all this beginning and starting energy. We have such an incredible opportunity right now in the next few months to just really say, reset. We're going to reset. We're going to restart. We're going to begin again. And you get to choose what timeline you want to focus on. You get to choose where you're going to focus your attention and where you're going to focus your intentions so that you decide how your life is going to go. Now, we all know that there's a lot of crazy stuff going on in our outer world. Okay, all kinds of stuff. So how do we find our own ballast in the midst of all of that? Well, I really love looking at the planets because the planets are all saying to us, tap into your intuition, tap into your creativity, begin again, believe that the inspiration that you're receiving will lead you to where you want to go. Right? All these outer planets have been in the either in the knowing circuit or the sensing circuit for the last few years, really. Every once in a while, one of them will dip into logic, but for the most part, they've been in intuition and creativity. And so they've been really saying to us, come on, people, heal this left brain dominance. Take a hold of your innate creativity. Take a hold of your innate intuition, right? These things that you got programmed away from, that you were taught when you were a young person that they weren't valuable, right? Break out of that and activate and utilize all of your intelligences. Now, I actually just released a video that shows the breakdown of this in the human design chart, and you can go and check that out if you want to. Here, I shared it in the Aquarian activation that I did back in November when Pluto first moved into Aquarius. So you can go and look at that and see what I mean. This is such a big message that I think people have not been paying enough attention to. When we get into fear and when we have this resistance to change, right? Which can be kind of internal, right? You might have an idea that you're open to change, but then inside, right? And that happens a lot. It's not particular to you if you're aware of that, okay? But we want to be able to embrace this opportunity for us to be evolving ourselves, to really go to higher and higher and higher and higher frequencies. In order to do that, we want to be paying attention to what's going on on our inner landscape, and we want to be paying attention to what the planets are pointing us to. So this is why, as I said earlier in the video, I really like to do energy practices on a regular basis. And this is something that we do in the Sovereign Sisterhood every single month. I offer a new Kundalini yoga practice that we use that's connected to the themes that we're working on, so that we can really use the power of our focused mind to grow and clear our energy on a regular basis. To me, this is how we become the eye in the storm. And you become your own eye, right? Your own auric field is like your eye in the storm, and you can move through the world with more grace and with more ease. It doesn't mean that things aren't going to throw you off, and it doesn't mean that no disaster is going to come your way. I mean, I'm sure that there were people in Los Angeles, and there were people in Gaza, and there are people, in many different places where, disaster came their way, right? So it doesn't 100% guarantee it, but it does give you a lot more leverage and a lot more ability to manage things that come your way. So if you have a disaster that comes your way, it makes you much stronger to be able to deal with it. Now, let's just say that that's not going to happen to you, okay? But I'm just saying, it's happening around our world. Probably people have been impacted. I certainly know people have been impacted. And so we want to grow ourselves as to be as strong as we can, and to be leaning in to what's possible, right? That the planets are pointing us to, and opening up our channels so that we can be receiving from superconsciousness that spiritual guidance that wants to come to us, to be leading us into this new earth that we're now creating. So just a reminder that we have the Evolve Yourself Through the Human Design Transits next Tuesday, January 28th. That's going to happen at noon Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern time, 8 p.m. in the UK, and 6 a.m. Eastern Australian Standard Time on Wednesday. So I hope that you can come to that. There will be a replay that's available, and I will be sending you some more details about this program. And I hope that you will come and join us. If you want to learn more about your incarnation cross, and you want to learn more about how the human design transits work, and how you can really apply them to your own human design, and even more importantly, to your own life. All right, my dears, many blessings, much love. Bye for now.